Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, November 18th, and this is Morning Market Movers, where we do live analysis for day traders and we take a look at potential hotspots in the markets for the day. My name is Todd Rich. I am with Nadex. With me from Keep Trading Simple is Brian Caprice. Before Brian and I jump into it, we do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. Now, we just had a couple of economic numbers come out, the Philly manufacturing index numbers. We also had jobless claims. Jobless claims in the US for this week, pretty steady considering a tight labor market. So everything seems to be okay there. Where are we looking at hotspots? Weirdly, weirdly on these numbers, gold makes a fairly dramatic dip lower and then immediately retraces, and now it's trying to head higher. There was some opportunity there with binary options, short duration binary options when you see volatility like that.
Mhm.
Oddly, we saw something similar in silver. Now, silver hasn't quite wholly retraced like gold did, but it's the same precipitous drop. I mean, it actually blew through all the short duration binary options. I mean, these bottomed out and then it came right back. Uh, Not sure why we saw that reaction in the metals. We'll also take a peek over at, maybe we'll take a peek at some of the equities, but the markets are looking to open slightly in the green.
Mhm.
Retailers, Macy's, Kohl's. I mean, retailers are killing earnings, but markets are still a bit muted. And then we do have the natural gas inventory report. Yesterday's oil inventory report led to some volatility. I know there was a fairly significant drawdown on our inventories, which you think would push prices higher, but that was coupled with talks of politically opening up the strategic oil reserves to put supply out onto the market. That's actually what pushed oil lower yesterday. So it's crazy because we do have the actual inventory levels and the measurements on how markets would move being influenced by um, political discussions. So markets are interesting there. So not a whole lot today. Relatively quiet. Brian, we could take a peek at gold and silver. I'm
Mhm.
not sure,
Yeah.
and then take a look at maybe equities and probably nothing going on in the foreign exchange markets. But
Mhm.
certainly looking at nat gas as a trade setup for today because oil was a pretty interesting one yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index, it's basically what it is, guys, if you're not familiar with it. It's asking purchasing managers kind of what their it's a survey asking their opinion on market conditions over the next 6 months. It was expected to be positive, but it came in almost double. That's a really, really big miss to the top side. Looking at gold and silver, most likely what happened in this scenario is I think they expected it to be good, but not that good. And people were probably long. And when they saw the number, like, oh my God, this is great. I got to go long. Well, everybody that waits for the number and tries to react afterwards would have said, yep, got to go long. If they're producing more stuff, great market conditions, that's a lot of inflation, let's go. And price immediately dropped down again. So it's kind of one of those scenarios where, yeah, the number was great. It should have gone higher because, again, positive manufacturing conditions over the next 6 months are only going to lead to higher rates of inflation. So if you were trying to be reactive to the news and be like, "Oh, I'm going to be the fastest person out there. I'm going to click refresh. I'm going to buy this right now," you got stopped out of your trade most likely. And again, this is the type of news releases that pop accounts, and this is why having limited risk entries with products like Nadex are very beneficial because. Remember, I mean, if you had gotten saw that number and said, "Oh yeah, definitely, I'm going long," and you had purchased, a binary there, as it dropped all the way down, guess what? You could have only lost maximum what you got into the trade for. Had you
Right.
been in futures contract for gold, that's quite a big down draw on your count, very very fast. And you look at that huge number because it's a futures contract on gold. You're like, oh my god, what just happened, right? That could have popped an account if you had leveraged yourself the wrong way. So at the end of the day, we're higher than what the news release was, as it should be. Gold as well as silver, it's doing the same exact thing. Remember, they're both hedges for inflation, and again, reason why this is most likely a futures kind of stop runner is because if you look at the cryptos had no cryptos and the dollar
Didn't
index
didn't move.
barely moved at all. I mean, it kind of went up a little bit and then kind of pulled back a little bit, just again because of gold. But same thing with crypto. Is I mean, Bitcoin right here really didn't move at all until I mean,
Nothing.
yeah. So
Interesting that it showed up in the gold and silver market. So
yeah,
I think that the takeaway here is around some of these numbers. These are more traditional assets for trading around inflation concerns, and if we're not going to see the dollar or other more current modern assets make these types of moves, if you're a day trader and you're looking for short-term trading opportunity, coming back and taking a peek at gold and silver is going to certainly make some sense.
yeah. Yeah, I mean they're early morning. I mean at 8:50 in the morning, it's kind of hard for a futures trader to be trading ES. There's just it's setting up. It's not quite there yet. It's
Right.
close. But it's not quite there yet. But when you have a news release like this, gold and silver markets are obviously open. So again, it's something that they could get in there and trade before the overall indices take it. Now, what does that do for the indices? I think today, I mean that's great when the guys building the stuff that we consume think that it's this good. That's only a positive for again if we're blowing earnings out now and these guys are saying that for the next 6 months the outlook looks really positive, and we know the Fed is very very cautious about doing anything with raising interest rates and tapering slowly and um, like I said, the Fed's interesting. The guy at the top is like, no, 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 we're going to go slow. Mostly everybody else is extremely hawkish. Like it needs to go in now. We got to go quick, right? I mean, if Powell gets removed, that's one of the big names for going slow. And remember, we brought it up before. If Bernard ends up taking over, it's like, oh, it's going to be continuality. It's like, but if we're going to have continuality, why change in the first place? It doesn't make any sense. If you're just trying to replace it to put your party in, then great. But
Yeah, I
doesn't make.
was actually reading an article that said people see her as actually even going slower
Mhm.
than Powell.
Yeah, well,
That she's even more dovish. So
yeah.
that would be
Bullard made a
interesting.
comment about that you're not going to see much difference if he said he fully supports her, but I think it's kind of one of these things like seeing what you're going to see what we're going to see in the future isn't necessarily the most positive rosy thing, but someone's got to do it. So if Bullard says, yeah, 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 we're going to see continuality, she's the right person for the job. It's kind of like,
Oh,
yeah,
it's a bait and switch.
yeah, it's kind of it's kind of the same thing. It's like remember when President Obama got elected, the joke was that, he could have ran against Jesus and it wouldn't have mattered. He would have won. At that stage, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, do you want to take the position and
Right.
when we know the negative is coming, and again, I think Bullard has his finger on the pulse better than Bernard, but I like some of the things that she really has to put out there. But at
Yeah.
the same time, if you're going to have continuality where nothing's going to change, why even replace?
So
Right?
I
That
don't know.
doesn't make
We'll see what
just
they
do it. So
do. There's
yeah,
clearly something going on in the background, and I guess we'll
yeah,
all learn when it happens, and we'll see how that manifests itself.
yeah. But
Um,
Williams and Evans are speaking today again at roundtable. So again, we may get some comments out of them today, and then also over in the energies. Natural gas. Yesterday was oil inventory. I did call it. I said I won't be surprised if this is negative. And we
oh
actually
yeah,
had
let's
more
bring up
negative
that
than I
oil
thought.
chart, by the way. I want to bring up. Let's take a look at that oil chart.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, here's where oil kind of dropped from yesterday, right? Right in here. Now, initially, again, if you guys were trading the 35 and 1, if I bring it down, I can bring it lower if I find it. Yeah. Here was that initial pop. We didn't make it all the way to 3 to 1, but we watched it pull back into the 35 and 1 strategy, and it did pop higher. And again, kind of ran into some sellers at the top side. So we did get the initial push, but then, as Todd mentioned, um,
Yeah,
using
and
all the
no,
bullets we
it's like
have, you
I'm
know,
not sure. We got questions in the chat. I know it's like those strategic reserves. What are those
yes, that's
for?
exact.
Is
Yep,
it for
Maria is
times of war
absolutely
and for
right.
the military? I guess it's for
Well,
anything
it's not.
now.
It's not for military. So what the Strategic Oil Reserve is for is any type of like disaster. It's
Right, right, right.
when you hear strategic, this is like not Marvel. It's not like the Shield, right? Strategic is basically if for some reason there's a natural disaster and the Gulf shuts down and there's a problem with supply. Again, in time of war, if we needed to do it to supplement maybe shipping coming in, it's meant for emergencies. There are times when there is some
Storms.
that is storms when it's released back and forth. It is not meant for a long-term inflation play. Okay, here's the problem with this. You start releasing this, you can only release so much before it becomes a national emergency where it gets too low. Okay, so it's a short-term device. It's not a long-term device. Once that bullet is fired, you can't get it back again. It's kind of the same thing. Once interest rates are at zero, you're not going to pay people to borrow money. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
I mean, everybody said, I don't know what the heck they're thinking by doing it this way. It's a great temporary reduction, but unless there's any policy changes or anything changes, and again, manufacturing is saying for the next 6 months, everything looks good here, that bullet is gone. It could lead to even worse inflation if they do not open up any other resources. Because remember, the strategic reserve is it's a fixed capacity. So it's got to come from somewhere. If demand is going to increase as we're coming out of COVID-19, it's got to
Yep.
come from somewhere. And if we, and this is what is going to make it worse. If we take from the strategic oil reserve, it has to be repaid. So
Right. You have
if
to put it
demand
back.
goes
Right. You
higher
can't deplete
and we
that.
have to do it, this is a recipe for even worse. And what are the alternatives? You're going to have shale that's going to start popping up again, and that's going to come back, which is even worse environmentally. So it goes back to the original decisions that they were not thinking ahead. They were trying to go for headlines, and unfortunately, the headline. I mean, a carbon neutral pipeline was not the end of the world. It doesn't have to be a long term fix. Absolutely, bring energy, alternative energies in. All the large oil companies are doing it,
We just have to
but
be
again,
ready for it. You have to have.
yeah,
You have to have. People need the energy, and
yeah.
so you can't
And
shut
again,
off
they
their energy.
can't. And again, the pipeline was like 95% done. It cost Canada billions of dollars, thousands of jobs. You can't turn it back on because it'd be mud in the face.
So, all
So yeah.
right,
So
let's take a quick peek here because we do have the nat gas
yep.
inventory at 10:30 Eastern. I think is that the right time? 10:30
Yeah,
Eastern.
10:30 Eastern. Yep. Yeah, natural gas is showing that it's up about 3%. It is rallying back. We were talking about yesterday coming all the way back down to 476. It didn't quite made it. I missed it again. I missed it by what 5 cents. It came down to 480 and then kind of formed a reversal. It's at an interesting level right now, and there's two levels I'd watch out for. One is kind of sitting right up here, and again, we know that there's a little bit of drama happening right here. Now, are those tradable? This one's going to be a little bit more difficult because the manufacturing number is going to be more. It's a bigger impact than the natural gas numbers. Natural gas does not have the same impact, in the U.S. market as oil does. It's not seen that way yet. It could be, but it's not seen that way yet. Can we still use the 35 and 1? The answer is yes. You can pretty much use it on all news releases, but I've been watching those two levels, and again, it's only 9 o'clock right now. I would expect this to rise. I would expect actually oil and natural gas both to go higher this morning after the opening print because, again, manufacturing is good. The economy looks great for 6 months, and it's also going to be cold. So, the economy being good is the demand. The
Yep.
time of the year is going to be, when natural gas demand is typically higher for, heating. So,
So someone going into this number, what could they be doing? I know you've done
yeah,
this
I mean,
before. Let's just give them the setup on what they could be looking at and for potential opportunities, particularly with those
yeah,
shorter
I would
duration
say
binaries.
I don't know if this area at $5 is going to hold. Remember, $5 is going to be a huge psychological number. When we're talking, it's like 1,800 in gold or 36,000 was right.
Right.
It's a big number, right? Fives and zeros are always going to be the most popular. Double zero right there, it's going to be a big deal. We got a zone right there at 505. So I wouldn't be surprised if price runs up into that level. With manufacturing saying that the next 6 months, the economic outlook looks twice as good as you thought it looked before. Natural gas is one of those things. It's like a consumer staple. You need it. It's not like it's not a luxury item. Heat is not a luxury item. So
Right.
even if the market turns or does something funky today, I mean, I would say, in my opinion, indices all deserve to be green today. If this one pops up again, I would love to say, hey, listen, on a purely technical basis, this is a great short if we can get up to 505 before the news release. The reality is we need to wait and see what it does at the opening print. It may actually run up all the way in the next 30 minutes to that level and then pull back for a release so it pops higher for later on today. And then we got to find the lower level. So a
So
lot can happen in the next hour and a half.
yeah, watch it. Right, 30 minutes before. Start
Yeah.
tracking it on and then as it gets close to the number, start dropping your time frames down
Yeah.
to 5, and then going into the number, maybe even 1 minutes, and see what there is to do. Um, Not really quite sure how it's going to end up impacting the market, but it is certainly a potential hotspot in the market on a day when there's not a whole lot else to really be talking about.
Just some speeches, yeah. But tomorrow morning, don't forget, guys. Tomorrow morning, you have that early morning retail sales for the pound. The pound's been a killer all week. Watch that, followed by 8:30 tomorrow morning retail sales for Canada. So dollar CAD could be in play. I love how dollar CAD is going up right now, even though we're seeing kind of dollar weakness across the board. Dollar CAD is kind of setting up for a great core retail sales, and it's already expected to be negative. So if it's not quite as negative, that's a big positive for the CAD. So dollar CAD maybe a nice short tomorrow morning.
All right, so take a look at that. That'll be happening right before we go live, so we can talk about that a few minutes after the fact. But that might be something for you to take a look at, dollar CAD, before we go on tomorrow morning. Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning with that. Please email us customerservice@nadex.com. Brian is also accessible. Excuse me. Support at keeptradingsimple.com. Tomorrow is, God, I cannot believe we're plowing our way through November. We got Friday next week, and then we've got the Thanksgiving holiday. I don't know where time goes.
The,
It
the, the
really is
silver and
relative.
Bitcoin countdown have started.
So,
It's like an advent calendar.
yeah, I'm waiting for the holiday music on the radio.
Hmm.
Yeah, so again, not a lot to talk about today. Certainly interesting things going on in gold and silver, and equities all looking to open or try to open in the green. And then there is that potential opportunity in nat gas when the inventory is released here in the U.S. at 10:30 Eastern.
Hmm.
With that, thank you for joining us. Good luck in the markets, everyone. Brian and I will catch you again tomorrow.